Most weight loss plans are one size fits all, not taking into account each person's individual needs. Noom is here to change that. Noom Weight uses psychology. That's why they say losing weight starts with your brain. But it also takes into account your unique biological factors, which also affect weight loss success. The program helps you understand the science behind your eating choices and why you have cravings. Everyone's journey is different, so your daily lessons are personalized to you and your goals. One of the great things about Noom is that it's nourishing instead of restrictive. They focus on progress instead of perfection. You don't have to give up carbs, or anything for that matter. Have cravings? Food FOMO? Noom can help you lose weight while still enjoying your favorite foods. To date, Noom has helped more than 5.2 million people lose weight. Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. That's Noom.com.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
And the wolf is at your door. Your running's over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down, no matter by you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real
Warning. This episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature. It should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or from some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims. My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own two eyes. If you're going to get offended, please turn this podcast off now. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. Today, we are again continuing with the defense side of Scott Peterson's trial for the murder of Lacey and Connor Peterson. And this is a series I call Scorched, State versus Peterson, the longest series I've ever done. But we are turning the corner on it, or so it seems. When I left you last, I told you about the taped conversation between Scott and his brother. Now, today, we're beginning with defense witness number 12, who is Jacqueline Peterson. And the direct is done by Mark Garagos and the cross by Rick DeStasio. So, Jackie Peterson, or Jacqueline Peterson, was asked about the money Scott had on him when he was arrested. Now, she had taken out $10,000 on April the 8th to assist John Peterson in buying out Scott's buying Scott's Dodge truck. And she gave $7,000 to $8,000 to Scott for his portion of the truck. And she had intended to draw it out of the account in her name, but the Bank of America took it out of Scott's account, which she is also listed on. Strange. Scott called it to her attention, and she withdrew $10,000 from her Washington Mutual account and gave the cash to Scott that day. when they were together at an art exhibit. How great. Scott, you're at an art exhibit and your wife and baby just washed up. But she gave him cash because she didn't want Bank of America to put a hold on the funds. Now, Jackie said she told Scott to buy the Mercedes in her name because he was tired of losing vehicles. Well, it doesn't really make any sense. Now, D'Estasio questioned that since no vehicle had been impounded since early January. But Geragos talked about how Scott continued to make monthly payments on the impounded truck, and selling the Dodge to John and getting the Mercedes was a way of reducing his payment level. And Jackie also testified about the amount of walking she and Lacey did at Carmel over several hours shopping while Lee and Scott played golf. And D'Estasio notes that the two women still had a vehicle available to them and that all places they went were accessible by vehicle. But Geragos asked Jackie on redirect to confirm that the two women had walked to all of those places and not driven. Okay, whatever. And they introduced some exhibits from the bank, what have you. So now we're going to defense witness number 13, Lee Peterson. So y'all, Lee takes a stand and he testifies to the homemade cement acres that Scott saw when he was with him on a fishing trip at Lake Poway, which looked identical to the ones that Scott had made. He also said he was the one that made the golf tee time for April the 18th for himself and Scott and Joe and Mark so they could have some time together and be normal. He explained how the resident discount worked and admitted that Scott would be misrepresenting himself by using John's driver's license to obtain the discount, which would result in him saving like $25 to $40 in green fees. Now, D'Estasio asked whether he didn't think it's unreasonable that Scott was attempting to save $25 to $40 when he had almost $15,000 cash in the car with him. And Lee replied, "My son wasn't paying, I was." Okay, there you have it. They introduced some exhibits, including the photo of a rental boat with a cement acre and photo of boats in a walkway and boat anchors, et cetera, et cetera. And Lee Peterson's residency card for Torrey's Pines Golf Course. Neither here nor there. What do you expect a father to say? All right, moving on. Defense witness number 14, Officer Michael Hicks. And Geragos is doing direct, and Brigitte Flagger is doing the cross this time. So Modesto Police Department Tactical Patrol is involved in the investigation of the Medina burglary. Remember the Scorched burglary. And on January 2nd, he had one of the suspects, Stephen Todd, in the back seat of the patrol car, and Todd told him he would tell him about the burglary, but he wasn't involved with the woman and the baby. Now the judge interrupts and tells the jury that the testimony was not given for the truthfulness of what Todd said, but for the reasonableness of the investigation. Todd goes on and says that he routinely drove his bike from his house to the airport district, down Covina, where the house is, into the park, and up the footpath to his mom's house. And then he would take the reverse route back home. And on December 25th, he noticed that the Medina house appeared to be empty. That's the one that got robbed. He returned around 3 a.m. on the 27th and removed some items and used a dolly to move the safe out into the front yard behind some bushes. And he went to get Pierce, his buddy, about 4 to 5 a.m. and they took Pierce's mom's car back to get the safe. Okay. So, well, dude's basically, told the officer that he did it, but he never saw Lacey. right? That's it. And so, no, let's go to the next day. Tuesday, October 26th, and again, it's Officer Michael Hicks. So Hicks then provides information that was given to him in his interview with the other burglary suspect, Pierce. And Pierce basically agreed with what Todd told him, except for fixing the date of the burglary on the morning of the 26th. Instead, he said it was on the morning of the 27th. At the conclusion of Hicks' redirect, the defense rested its case. All right. So, I guess the defense is making it short and sweet, knows the jury is tired as fuck. And you got these two bad guys that admitted they did a burglary, but they changed the date conveniently somewhat from the day that Lacey goes missing to the day after, which all the news media people said couldn't have happened because they were there. At least one of them said, hey, I was camped out and I didn't see anything. So the judge, DeLucci, tells the jury that there will be 8 rebuttal witnesses called by the prosecution on Wednesday, October 27th, and the court would convene at 12:30, and closing arguments were still scheduled for the following Monday or Tuesday. Hey, ladies, are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? Well, you're definitely not alone. There are more than 1,000 hormone disruptors living in our environment right now. It's in your food, your water, the air you breathe, the clothes you wear, your skincare products. They all mess with your hormones. Then there's the natural hormone changes your body goes through, premenopause, menopause. And while it's a natural process, it doesn't mean you have to suffer through it. The good news is you don't have to suffer through it anymore, because now you have Hormone Harmony, a formula made only with herbal ingredients that are shown to reduce hormonal symptoms in women of all ages. Hormone Harmony is not just a hormone supporting supplement. It's become a phenomenon. Women can't stop talking about it on social media. A bottle of Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds. And the biggest benefit? Well, my wife says it makes her feel like her own self again. And that's what women mention over and over in the reviews. And there are over 30,000 reviews for Hormone Harmony. And for a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use code RLRC at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC for 15% off today. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC. Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. If you haven't finished your holiday shopping yet, don't panic. We've got a secret source for incredible original gifts, and that's Uncommon Goods. They've got unique, hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. Gifts to spark joy, wonder, delight, and that it's exactly what I wanted feeling. And somehow they know exactly the perfect gifts for every single person you know. So skip the gifts that scream last minute and find something truly original at uncommongoods.com. I love the 12 days of gourmet nuts, y'all. Holy smoke, they're good. Each one of these packages contains 2 ounces of reusable container and has a different flavor of melty nuts in it to indulge in. Salted pistachios, honey sea salt almonds, cranberry nut blend, coconut curry peanuts, salted cashews, smoked almonds, buttered cinnamon pecans, fireside trail mix, deluxe nut mix, sea salt walnuts, taproom nuts, salted corn nuts, and each flavor is shrink sealed for freshness in its own reusable tin, and the collection is beautifully packaged in a ready-to-go gift box. So when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. Many of their handcrafted products are made in small batches, so shop now before they sell out for this holiday season. Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high quality, unique, and often handmade or made in the U.S. For holiday hosts and hostess gifts to the coolest finds for kids, for everyone from book lovers to die-hard sports fans. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone. Not the same old selections you can find just anywhere. Looking for a gift? You don't have to worry. Getting lost in the mail? Uncommon experiences are more than virtual classes. There are unexpected opportunities to have fun and connect in new ways, from tarot card reading, lunar astrology charting, cooking and mixology classes, crafts, gardening, and so much more. And with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $3 million to date. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/RLRC. That's uncommongoods.com/RLRC for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary. All right. We got some stipulations, okay? On Wednesday, October 27th. In a surprise ending, the prosecution decided not to put on its rebuttal witnesses. The judge read 4 stipulations and dismissed the jury until Monday morning to hear the closing arguments. And they said Thursday will be spent with the attorneys and the judge deciding which exhibits will be admitted into evidence. And Friday, they would set the jury instructions. Okay. Y'all, they've got like 1,000 exhibits that I told you about them somewhat, but I didn't read them to you verbatim. And so now they're going to say, look, some of the shit is redundant. You got 50 photographs of semen anchors. We only go, both sides want to agree to limit it, what they're going to give to the jury to make their deliberations. Now, the instructions are always long and tedious, but they are very important. And in every trial, it differs a little bit. And the judge has to do this. It's very, 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 very important for appeal. And if he gets found guilty, as we all know, 20 years later, he's still got appeals. And if your jury instructions are fucked up, you're definitely getting a new trial. All right. So, but they had to make certain stipulations. And the first stipulation was that if Vladimir Rodriguez were called to testify, he would testify as follows: that he was shown photographs that had been downloaded from the internet showing a bag of concrete in the Peterson driveway. And Rodriguez would testify there were several bags of concrete purchased and placed in the driveway. And he would testify that they were going to use the concrete to replace the fence post that supports the gate by the driveway. And that was removed in order to access the backyard with a tractor to dig the hole for his pool. Rodriguez would testify that when they removed the fence post by the gate, they found it wasn't in concrete. Rodriguez would testify that the contractor did not replace the front fence post by the gate in concrete, since there was no concrete to begin with. Rodriguez identified the bag of concrete in the photographs that had been labeled whatever, and those photographs were placed in evidence. And it was basically 4 photographs, y'all, of the driveway and the bags of concrete. And they stipulated that he would further testify that he does not know what happened to it after it was not used for the fence post. And Rodriguez said it remained in the driveway for several weeks, and then he assumes the contractor used it somewhere else. And Rodriguez would further testify that he had done no concrete work on the Peterson property. So again, y'all, they stipulate to this so they don't have to have another witness take the stand. Second stipulation. And they stipulated that the People's Exhibit number 298 is an email which was recovered from the dining room table on February the 18th of 2003 during the search warrant at that Covina house, and that has been admitted to evidence. And when you are deliberating, if you want any of these exhibits, we will send them to you so you can go through them. Third stipulation. The defendant's H is going to be admitted in evidence to take the same number, whatever, y'all. It was Mr. Alston that testified from the store, and he identified a no sales receipt from Alston, and that's going to be admitted in evidence, whatever. Fourth stipulation. It was stipulated that the defendant's necks in order was recovered by Lydell Wall off the computer, Scott's computer. And then the defense marked it, whatever. Y'all, it's stupid shit. Okay. We'll just skip through that. But this is all, remember, Thursday, they're going through the exhibits and they're stipulating to what can be admitted and what can't. And also on Thursday, they had a conference in chambers with the judge and the lawyers regarding the exhibits, blah, 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 whatever. All right, let's move to Friday, the 29th of October. The exhibits to be admitted and finalized jury instructions. So I think this is the day for that. And on any jury instruction, the judge wants inputs from both sides and is going to weigh it and then makes a decision and to make it fair and what have you. I'm not going to go through this all. It is long AF. It's all about photographs and autopsy photos and people that are registered as sex offenders in Modesto and the whatever, man, shit like photo of Detective Hindi with a leaf crown on his head to look like Julius Caesar and Skylarking, just stupid shit. I mean, it goes on for pages and pages, pages. It's everything that we've talked about. They're just deciding what's going to go in. I'm not going to kill you with this. I'm still scrolling all this shit. But the parties agreed that the exhibits admitted into evidence, except the sealed ones, would be available to the media for viewing on Wednesday afternoon after the judge had instructed the jury and sent them back to deliberate. Okay, whatever. It's going to be a matter of public record anyway. Now, dog tracking evidence. Let's see if I can summarize this for you. The judge recommended the evidence of the dog tracking of the victim. This is instructions. That he just basically tells them the evidence is not by itself sufficient to permit an inference that the defendant is guilty of the crime of murder, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And it goes on about the dog. You should consider if the dog handler was qualified by training and experience to use a dog, whether or not the dog was adequately trained in tracking humans, whether or not the dog has been found reliable in tracking humans, whether the dog was placed on track, whatever, fuck. Just going to go on past all that. All right. But this is all the instructions that he's given to the jury. So they have what to consider or not to consider. Then they address the issue of failure to timely produce evidence. Garagos wanted an instruction on the prosecution's failure to give them evidence in time enough where they could defend it. DeLucci, the judge, says, yeah, that's a problem. But he noted the problem hasn't surfaced since he sanctioned them and with the striking of a witness's testimony. And Judge DeLucci was whatever. I'm not going into all that. Skipping on down. They talk about the DNA and DeLucci wouldn't include instructions. They're talking about the mitochondrial DNA, and they wanted Harris wanted an instruction on it, and the judge says no. So then they talked about resolution of conflicting expert testimony. They talked about a concurrence of act and specific intent that y'all deals with the definitions of first and second degree murder, which should include intent. And the instruction is going to go on and say that it need not be shown as the exact time of the crime. He goes on and gives instructions about the different degrees of murder. In doubt whether it's first or second degree murder. Then he goes on to involuntary manslaughter, etc. Let's go down to flight. When it gets to flight, Garagos objected and he didn't want anything about flight in the instructions to the jury. And the judge said the attempted flight of a person after the commission of a crime or after he is accused of a crime is not sufficient in itself to establish his guilt, but is a fact which, if proved, may be considered by you in the light of all the other proved facts in deciding whether or not the defendant is guilty. All right, let me sum it up for you. They're talking about when they catch Scott within miles of the border. He's got all the cash. He's dyed his hair, blah, 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 whatever. Try to avoid the cops. They were telling him and all that. And basically the judge says you can't take that to infer his guilt Just that to infer his guilt, right? All right.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Moving on, pretrial statements. I don't know. I'm not going to read you all this. The cites like 6 different cases and all that shit, whatever. Moving on, opposition to media coverage of the verdict. Judge DeLucci originally agreed to let the media have coverage of the verdict because neither the defense or the prosecution objected. But both the Peterson and the Rocha family expressed objections. And they said, I don't want to expose the families to further scrutiny and turn this into some sort of spectacle, depending on what the verdict is going to be in the case, whatever. Then they get into the availability of attorneys for the verdict. And Judge DeLucci says he had a concern that if all the attorneys are returning home and not being available when the verdict is reached. So they said Pat Harris would remain in Redwood City, available to be ordered on demand, and Garagos will be available if he's available to, because he had other commitments. David Harris asked for a 2-hour notice time to accommodate the family members who lived in Modesto, but the Judge DeLucci insisted they stay in Redwood City because of the time of the day the verdict comes in cannot be predicted, and traffic may prevent them from arriving in 2 hours. All right, just y'all, this is all fucking fluff. Doesn't matter one way or the other. It's not Scorched. On Monday, the 1st of November, 2004, Judge DeLucci reviews the California GIC instructions he planned to give to. Okay. He comes in, basically, y'all, he's got his jury instructions that he took from both sides. He reviews it with attorneys. And he says that if it's a hung jury, he would give them instructions. I'm not going to cite the case, to go back and try to get a verdict, right? And if they were still hung, he would give them another instruction called the stone instruction. And if they still hung, wishes to go back again and try it again. And if they were still hung, he would rule it a mistrial. All right. So then the Judge DeLucci explains the purpose of the closing arguments to the jurors. Now, this is where it kind of gets good. And I'm going to read this to you. Okay. So he tells the jury this: we've come to the part of the trial now, which is called argument. The law permits the attorneys for either side to argue to you reasonable inferences and deductions from the evidence that's been presented, okay? The prosecutor makes an open argument. The defense attorney makes his argument. And then the prosecutor has a closing argument. The reason why the prosecutor gets 2 chances to argue to you is that the prosecutor has the burden of proof. And since he has the burden of proof, the law gives him 2 chances, okay? And now, during the course of these arguments, if the attorneys make reference to some portion of the evidence that's different from your recollection of what was testified to, feel free to disregard the attorney's version of what took place and rely on your own memory. You're the trier of the fact. Sometimes during the course of the trial, the lawyers will ask a question, and while they're formulating the next question, they may not hear the answer the same way you did. So it's not an attempt to deceive you by any means, but it happens, okay? So the point is, if there's a conflict in the evidence, if you have, and your recollection is that it's one way, and of course you have your notes, and we have read back to, you can rely on your own version of the events that took place, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and give you Rick DeStacio's beginning of his opening to closing arguments, for lack of a better term. All right. Now I'm quoting verbatim. So check this out. Rick DeStacio. He gets up and says, "It's simple. It's a simple case where a man murdered his wife. I can't tell you he did it at night. I can't tell you he did it in the morning. I don't have to prove that to you. I only have to prove that he did it. The only person that we know without any doubt who was there in the exact location where Lacey and Connor Peterson's bodies washed ashore at the exact time when they went missing is sitting right there. And he points at Scott Peterson, y'all. Courtroom's quiet. You can hear a pin drop. And it continues. That alone is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. You could take that fact to the bank and you could convict this man of murder. I was once with a woman who I thought was my soulmate, but I lost her. Lacey Peterson was dead to Scott Peterson a long time before he killed her. I'm not telling you that he killed his wife to go marry Amber Fry. Amber Fry represented his freedom. Freedom he wanted. This is the life that Scott Peterson wanted. Not necessary to be with Amber Fry, although he was completely obsessed with her. The reason he killed Lacey Peterson was that Connor Peterson was on the way. Things were going to change. No more of this running around, living this double life thing. He wants to live this rich, successful, freewheeling bachelor life. He can't do that when he's paying child support, alimony, and everything else. He didn't want to be tied to this kid the rest of his life. He didn't want to be tied to Lacey for the rest of his life. So he killed her. There's no big secret there. I don't care how upset you are. Nobody forgets that you just got home from fishing at the Berkeley Marina. Peterson had planned to dump Lacey's body, get back to Modesto, and go to the golf club. But the disposal took longer than planned. And that was it. He just screwed up his alibi. He's a very manipulative guy. Scott Peterson, he knows exactly what he's doing at all times. 2 lives are catching up on Scott Peterson. The 2 lives are catching up on Scott Peterson. He got those porn channels because he knew she's not coming home and he's moving on with his life. He created a fantasy life in his head and then he made it reality. All right. So y'all, that was the opening. Okay. Now, on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2004, Judge DeLucci, continued the discussion of jury instructions. And of course, this would have been done without the jury, y'all. Garagos had objected to the inclusion of the second degree instruction, being second degree murder, based off of blah, 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 blah. DeLucci overruled his objections. And Mark Garagos gave the closing arguments for the defendant. And I'm going to start those for you now. So Garagos gets up. Everybody's waiting, right? Goes for the jury and he says, Scott Peterson asked his sister-in-law to come over for pizza the night detectives think he killed his wife. Authorities found no trace evidence indicating she was murdered in the home. He paid her health insurance premium the day before she vanished. Police evidence photos showed a curling iron out in the bathroom, though their housekeeper testified she put the items away the day before. Someone used a computer in the home on December 24, 2002 to search for a fleece scarf and a sunflower motif umbrella stand. It's reasonable that Lacey Peterson, who wore scars and had a sunflower tattooed on her ankle, surfed the internet that morning. Someone printed from the internet a recipe for creme brulee that morning. A neighbor whose bedroom is about 15 feet from the Petersons' Covina Avenue home heard nothing unusual that night. After researching the umbrella stand, Lacey Peterson probably asked her husband to put their patio umbrellas in storage. That's why they were in his pickup when the police arrived, not because he used them to cover up her body. Testimony indicated that Scott Peterson was attempting to spend more time with his wife's parents because they would soon have a new grandchild. Scott Peterson appeared affectionate in a store and rubbed his wife's stomach, an employee testified. The theory that he didn't want to be saddled with child support doesn't make sense because Lacey Peterson stood to inherit $1 million, perhaps wiping out her husband's obligation if they divorce. He let police search his home and warehouse, provided blood and hair samples, and retrieved receipts proving where he was the day in question. The uncontroverted testimony is that this guy searched more than any human for his family. D'Estasio's suggestion Monday that Peterson grabbed a handgun for protection just before leaving to dump his wife's body makes little sense. Where did that come from? Now he's going to shoot it out with the California Highway Patrol on his way to the marina? That's so absurd, makes no sense. The only thing they're banking on is you'll hate him, and if you hate him, you'll suspend rationality. Detectives' tunnel vision kept them from investigating reported sightings of Lacey Peterson for several months. Yet, on January 2nd, 2003, they used the media to appeal for help from anyone who might have seen Scott Peterson's pickup or the boat. If Scott Peterson was the person who was responsible for Lacey's death, wouldn't he know what she was wearing when he killed her? Why would he tell them a white shirt and black pants? What sense would that make? Then he hides the tennis shoes, and while she's dead, he watches Martha Stewart. Y'all, we're going now to Wednesday, the 3rd of November. Garagos has concluded his closing arguments for the defendant. And he's continuing it. He discussed the twine around Connor's neck and Dr. Peterson's statement that it had to be cut because it could not be removed over the head. He notes the possibility that the twine was used to keep a bag on Connor and that the bag was held in place by the twine. Garagos reviewed several of the jury instructions, reminding them their responsibility to apply them as they deliberate. And he argued that he has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Lacey was alive on the 24th. Now, Rick D'Estasio gives us a rebuttal argument, and D'Estasio argues that the major elements of the case are pretty much stipulated to. Lacey and Connor were human beings, and they were murdered with malice and forethought. He said premeditation also stipulated to, in the sense that the defense claims someone other than Scott abducted Lacey, intending to kill her. That makes 2 first-degree murders proved beyond a reasonable doubt. D'Estasio then noted that much of the defense case rested on hearsay information, which was not admitted for the truth and which cannot be considered by the jury as the truth. The only exception was that of Diane Jackson's statements. D'Estasio continued to argue that because the bodies were found where Scott said he went fishing, only 2 possibilities exist. Either Scott put them there, or someone else did just to frame Scott. He claimed it is an undisputed fact that Lacey and Connor were in the bay for 3 to 6 months. And he argued that it's not reasonable to conclude someone else put Lacey's body in the bay. And DeStasio concluded with a few more rebuttal points about Scott's visits to the marina, his research on the internet, the Croton watch, and that he didn't have injuries to his hands. And to explain the mineralization on Lacey's pants, that Dr. Peterson said results from repeatedly being alternately covered and exposed, he said that occurred during the process of being washed ashore and while she lay on the rocks before being found. Now, DeStasio closed his argument by refuting Garagos' claim that the prosecution frequently changes theory. He said, the prosecution has not presented a theory until the closing argument, that it's not allowed to. Now, that's it, y'all. Judge DeLucci then reads the instructions to the jury and retire them to select a jury foreman and begin deliberations. And deputies that work the detail with the jurors, they are sworn in, and this happens in every case, y'all, because on appeal, they want to know that nobody had access to the jury or whatever. So whatever door that the jury goes into, they have a deputy there guarding them. And then they're also the deputy that if the jury foreman knocks on the door and says, hey, we have a question about this or that, they'll take the question to the judge, and the judge, reads it out and does whatever they do. So they're with them, and they're stuck like glue, and they are not let out. Even though they're not in the room with the jury, the deputies that are sworn to stand by them are there. Now, Swim, someone who isn't me, usually knew who the deputies were in his cases, and those doors aren't that thick. You can hear what's going on, whether they're arguing, what they're debating, and whatever, right? So that's probably a little known fact, and I can assure you that the prosecution investigator at least knew who they were, and they were keeping tabs on what was going on in the jury room. So, all right, y'all, I'm going to continue it next week, and we are going to finally have a verdict in the case, even though you already know what it is. It gets scorched, and because of what happens next. And that's it. And thank you for listening to it. I think that there's a lot that's been presented thus far on both sides, and I'm on the jury. It's reasonable to conclude his marina statements and the body's washing up where he went fishing on that day and the time frame in. But it's all expert testimony. There's nothing that's direct evidence. But I do have a lot of problems with it. A lot of problems with what they didn't do with sex offenders, what they didn't do with the jailhouse phone calls, what they didn't do, how the bad guys that robbed the fucking house changed the dates of the robbery and then I got a problem. You heard however many episodes it's been. I got a problem with a lot of it. A lot on both sides. Well, one thing I think the prosecution, or I know the prosecution had going for them in this case, was Amber Fry. And because there's people sitting on the jury, I'm sure most of them were married, good, bad, or indifference on the marriage, and they're listening to all this shit. And it just so happens at this time, and the shit that he did while they're searching for Lacey and Connor, like acting like he's in Paris for New Year's Eve and shit like that. I mean, come on, man. That's like a child rape case, having photographs, or child porn case, and showing all the child porn pictures of babies being raped. Jury wants somebody to pay, right? So we'll get to that next time. And I appreciate y'all listening and liking and sharing and all that good podcaster shit. Hashtag Justice for Haley. Please continue to share it. We need to get justice for her, y'all. It's just so stupid, this case. And I don't believe, I know it wasn't intentional where the case is at, but we need to bring it. We need to get a murder indictment, and we need to help justice move along. And thank you for listening to True Crime Time for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with Cindy and I. Hope you're enjoying it. You have any ideas for stories, please feel free to email them to Cindy@realliferealcrime.com or Woody@realliferealcrime.com. And the LOPA, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency, they are a nonprofit, save lives every day. Become an organ donor, y'all. And even if you're a lifer and you're not from Louisiana, you could be from Zimbabwe. Go to lopa.org, take 2 minutes, fill out the questionnaire thing, and they will help you become a hero. All right. And you can maybe one day save a bunch of lives. All right. I'm Woody Overton, your host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And until next time or ever, don't let me catch you down on Murder Bayou. Peace.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, you running's over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down no matter by you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.